This is Ivy Unleashed, a Gold Ivy production. Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so happy to be recording because it's been a minute. And it's the middle of summer, and we're very excited to talk about getting outside. And we have a guest to talk about it with us and how important nature is to our mental health, our physical health, all of it. So welcome to Ivy Unleashed, Laura Opie.
I feel like this is like a bucket list item that I didn't know I had.
Ooh.
It's like so exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time, but I'm super passionate about getting outside, so I'm so excited to like share that.
Yes. And it's interesting, like our connection to Laura is that Laura and I grew up in the same town growing up, this tiny town of 5,000 people. We were in the same dance class for some years, and she was a year older than me in school, so we didn't have like class together outside of dance. But we haven't talked to each other in a couple decades until recently, because Brooke and I started following her because she's been doing the 1,000 hours outside challenge with her 3 kids and husband. And so we want to talk about what this challenge is, how the hell you do this. I also have 3 kids, but like the dedication, we want to get into all of it. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about you, your family, and how you started getting into this challenge?
So I grew up obviously a very small town. I grew up outside. We did a lot of outside stuff. We did a winter downhill ski vacation. We camped. We had a lake house, so we skied and fished. But then as I got older, I wouldn't call myself like really nature minded. Although when I was like kind of prepping for this, I realized that when my husband and I, before we got married, maybe we were like 23 and we used our tax return money to buy bicycles. So I think I was more nature minded even in my younger 20s than I thought I was. But then once we started having kids, so I have 3 kids, they're 10, 6, and 3 now. And my husband and I have been married. We just celebrated our 12-year anniversary. And so when we started having kids, it was really important to us to get them outside, to have them experience the same kind of childhood that we had in the 80s and 90s when there wasn't social media, there wasn't the screens that we are just pummeled with now. When my son was 1, we canceled our cable, which 9 years ago was not something that was really a mainstream. It is now. You can stream all kinds of stuff. But it was just, we just spent time outside and it just wasn't a necessity in our life. So they all have grown up in hiking backpacks. I mean, my kids have been outside since they were born, basically. When my second son was born, I posted a picture on Facebook of us taking a hike when he was 10 days old. And for me, I didn't think anything of it. He was like in a wrap. And people are like, "What are you doing? You're 10 days postpartum. Like, go snuggle your baby." And I was like, "I am, but we're doing it on a walk." And so we have just it's always been part of our parenting philosophy. And then early 2020, like right around pandemic, or maybe just a titch before that, somehow I stumbled across 1,000 hours outside on social media. And it's basically a global movement now. And it was started by a mom in Michigan. She has, I think, 5 kids. I'm not exactly sure. She was struggling with getting her kids outside and disgusted by the fact that kids were like clocking 1,000 to 1,200 hours of screen time a year. So anyways, she started this to get her kids outside and to try to say, if my kids can spend, or your kids can spend 1,000 hours on a screen, my kids can spend 1,000 hours in nature. And so I stumbled upon this and it really spoke to me, and my sweet husband, who just goes along with my crazy ideas sometimes. And so I printed off. They have trackers online on her website for free. I printed off an 8.5 by 11 sheet for both of my boys, who were 3 and 6 at the time, and my daughter was a newborn. And I counted their hours. I tracked their hours. They have all kinds of cool designs. For every hour that you spend outside, you color in 1 block. And so for 2020, we separately did that. And then we made it. They did it within like 9 months. And then in 2021, we decided to just take it like a step further, and we made it a family thing. So not only were we going for 1,000 hours outside in 1 year, we wanted to do it as a family. So for us now to log 1 hour of time, there has to be four out of the five of us outside. It forces the parents, like, we can't just say, go outside and play. It forces my husband or I to also be outside with them, which for me has been um, like life changing for me, as somebody who has struggled on and off with anxiety for my entire adult life. The mental clarity, the overall like sense of just good that you come out of having outside time has been life changing, truly, for us. So that's where we're at. We're on our third full year as a family. So we did it the first year. We made it our 1,000 hours when we were trick or treating. So October 31st. Last year we made it December 30th, right in the nick of time. And so here we're like halfway through. We're not quite halfway through with our hours because we log a lot more hours in the summer, obviously, than in the winter.
I love it. And when you put it the way you just said of you can be on a screen for 1,000 hours a year. What if we try and get you outside? We know the negative effects of screens and we know the positive effects of being outside. You listed a few with yourself. I'm curious what you've seen your kids. Like, what are the benefits that your kids have shown after doing this for going on 3 years now?
Going outside is like second nature to them at this point. I mean, we eat like 99% of our meals outside between May and October. If it's 98 degrees outside, I'm like, do you guys want to eat outside? And they're like, yeah. And so it's just part of what they do. They know that I don't force them outside. It's not a check this off the list type of thing. It's not a like, you guys have to go outside whether you want to or not type of thing. It's, but it's so good for them. They love it. They're exhausted by the end of the day. I mean, they are so tired. Even if it's we're outside for an hour or we're outside for 6 hours, they're so tired. I mean, if you have ever spent time at a family reunion when you're outside for several hours at a time and you get done, you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. And all I did was talk to Grandpa Joe for 4 hours. Why? Because all of your senses are being stimulated for hours at a time. You're hearing things, you're smelling things, you're seeing things. It's exhausting for all of your senses to be just firing all the time like that. So my kids have been, I mean, you can see it in the fact that when they are a little rambunctious, as all children get, that's my number one cue, like, get outside, burn off some energy, go play. We have an awesome neighborhood here. So like backyard kids are playing all the time. Like, just go outside and they can let off their steam. They can be loud. I'm super triggered by like loud screaming in my house. So they go outside and I don't want them screaming, freaking the neighbors out, right? But they just can let off steam, as all of us can. It's been interesting to kind of watch them as we started off. They're kind of like, oh, this is cool. And now it's like, oh, they get up, get dressed, grab their breakfast, go outside. And that's how we start our summer days.
Mm-hmm. I just think there's so much wonder in nature too, like as kids discovering different kinds of birds and bugs, and sometimes that backfires in my household. My daughter's currently afraid of ants. But you know, the wonder of it. And I think too, there's something soothing about it. Like if you're super upset and getting outside, or like just today on my lunch break, I'm like, why am I sitting here looking at my phone? I went and sat, even looking at my phone outside, you know, even that, it's just like better out there. And so I just think there's something so soothing about it. And like you said, they sleep better. And studies show that like sleep quality improves drastically depending on how much time you spend outside. The more time you're outside, the better your sleep is. And that makes sense with all the stimulation of your senses, but it's a different stimulation than like the blue light of a screen. So it's like you get best of both worlds. It's like more soothing and you get better sleep.
Right. And you're speaking to you, an adult. Like, I love that you're getting your kids into this, Laura, from a early age, but no matter where you are in life listening, this is something that you can aim to do even a few more hours than you are a week, a couple more minutes a day. Like, those little things add up. We know there's so many benefits of nature. Yes, improved sleep, but also lowered blood pressure, better immune system, lowers anxiety and depression. For me in my healing journey, it was get outside and just put your feet in nature on the ground for grounding. You get that electric current. It's mind-boggling. You could read studies for hours on all of the benefits. I'm curious, Laura, have your kids reported anything to you that you've just kind of picked up on of like that they really love it? Or was there a little backlash in the beginning of like, this feels like we're being told what to do? Because I'm sure someone listening is like, you're making your kids 1,000 hours. Like that's a heavy demand. So how was this taken when you first introduced it?
They were pretty much on board. It was, of course, and you have to remember the times too. Everything was like in the midst of shutting down. We didn't have a lot of options to go places. But since we were already kind of outside minded, my kids outside of not going to school they weren't super affected by the shutdown because we were already outside, and outside of, not going to school or seeing people close up, it wasn't a big change. That being said, it's been, 4 years. So they are, especially my oldest, who is 10, it gives me a little bit more pushback now. It's, oh, there's nothing to do. So like we have added more things to do, like in our yard, more fun stuff. We've got a climbing dome, we've got a mud kitchen, we've got ratchet straps to climb trees, adding different elements that way because we love to hike, we love to camp. You can't just do that every day. It just isn't realistic. So we've added a lot more fun elements to the backyard to keep it interesting. But for the most part, it's shocking. We'll go for a hike, and especially the first like hikes after winter, we winter hike as well, but the first hikes when like everything is melting and like birds are coming back, and my kids will be like, oh, did you see that? Did you hear that? Did you know that? Look, there's a track. They are noticing all these things, and comparing of course with winter as well, but they're so cognizant of like all the changes and things that I, as an adult, I don't notice airplanes, right? I don't notice these things. They're just background noise. And for them, they're still so excited about those things that they just, it's so wholesome. It's so wholesome. But they really I don't get a lot of backlash. I think as my kids get older, of course, especially seeing my older one, the way that he's, I want to do things with friends, I want to do stuff like this, more frequently, I think we'll hit that point. But for right now, for the ages that my kids are, they're super into like all the stuff. I opened the camper up a few weeks ago, and campers have that like smell, and I'm opening it up and like trying to get that smelled air out, and my 10-year-old goes in, he's like, I love that smell. But again, it's like he has these memories that attach to that smell, these awesome camping trips and stuff that we've done and stuff that we have yet to do. And so I haven't got a lot of negativity. Now we also follow the phrase, and I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. So right after we started this journey, I read the book, There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather by Linda McGurk. And that was like a pivotal moment for my family, because that's exactly what she says. There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes choices. So we go out no matter what the weather looks like, but to make it fair and to make it fun and to make sure that everyone's enjoying themselves, we are well equipped at this point. We've got all the warm gear, all the rain gear. My kids are huge. They love to go out in the rain in the summer in their swimming suits. I used to be one where it was like, it's raining outside, it's an indoor day, we're going to watch movies. And now my kids are like, it's a raining day, we're going outside. So they're still at this, I don't know if it's a sweet spot where their age is or what, but they're still loving it. I just don't get a lot of backlash.
I feel like it might be something too that it's like so if your family isn't outdoorsy and then you try to transition to this, there's just like always a little bit of resistance, but it's like anything, once you see the benefits and they enjoy it. Like my kids were just at their grandparents' lake home all week and they were outside so much. And Justin's parents were saying how they were like asleep like an hour earlier than they are when they're home because they were so exhausted and had so much fun in the sun. I want to circle back to what a mud kitchen is. What is a mud kitchen?
Again, my sweet husband, I came upon these and he built it for me, for the kids. And it is like a wooden platform and it's got like an empty section in the middle where like a tub sits. And then we can fill it with water, and we've got hooks. And so my kids have all kinds of like old muffin tins and measuring cups. And so they will mix all kinds of wonderful ingredients together from the backyard and water and make a huge mess and play and cook stuff, and all ages. I mean, my older kids, the older neighbor kids, like it's me. I mean, it's fun for everybody, and it's not something that you typically see, but they love it.
So then do you hose them off before they get in your house, I'm hoping?
Yes, everybody gets hosed down. That's part of the deal.
Yeah, that's kind of a misconception too, is you think they're getting dirty, but it's actually really good for your immunity to play in the mud, to get into the dirt. It's actually super good for you. And so that's something that I think a lot of people think, oh, I don't want you to get sick. But it's actually the opposite.
Yeah. I even think about how I feel this summer being indoors on a phone, on a screen for work. It's like that urge to be like, or that urge within me is get outside. You need more sun. You need just nature. It's like the best part of my day is to go out for a walk. We know it's amazing for your gut health to get out in the morning and your health in general, which we've talked about before. But it's that lust for nature that I've never had before, that there's something different about it this summer. And I'm so happy that we're talking about this now. Laura, let's get into how you keep track of this. What do you aim for? Is it 2 hours every day? Or how do you make sure by October that you're not way off?
So that's been different every year. If you break it down, technically, if you divide it by 365 days, it equals out to 2 hours and 45 minutes a day. So in the cold, we're in Wisconsin here. So in the cold months, we shoot for like an hour a day, January, February-ish, December. And the other months, it's like a free for all. We're just going for it. I mean, there's like little things that the people have put like 1 hour for the first couple months, 2 hours. No, we just go. And if we don't make it, it's fine, but we've always made it. So there's like that pressure to do it. But we really don't have, I mean, I don't want to put like a stipulation on it and then it loses its like the idea behind it,
Yeah.
What would you say is the hardest part for your family?
Weather has been tricky. I try really hard to not like use negative connotations with the weather. So instead of saying, oh, it's the bad weather. I mean, everybody, oh, we got snow today. I try, oh, it's a snowy day. It's going to be so fun. But I don't like to be cold. So for me to go outside is harder for my kids. They're like, let's go, let's sled or whatever. And a lot of times I'm the one where I'm like, let's go, and just force myself. And once I get outside, just like the kids, it's awesome. I love it. There's so many giggles. There's so many cool memories we're making. But that's probably one of the harder things. The other thing I struggle with is this time management. So we're spending like 8 hours outside in the summertime when I'm not working. Who's doing my laundry and who's doing my menu and my grocery shopping? And who's making supper for us? Because I'm outside. So, how is that going to work? And so I bring it outside. I am often out here on my patio, like making my menu, making my grocery list, balancing my checkbook. I'm not always with the kids. They're at an age now where they can play on their own. And so I'm present, but a lot of times I'm a mom. So you're trying to do all the things. So that's been something that I've had to work with. I cook dinners if I'm home, if it's my day off. I cook dinners at 1:00 usually when my daughter takes a nap. Because at 4:00 I don't want to cook. I want to play outside with the kids after school or whatnot, or we've got sports and stuff going on. So I try to utilize my time so that we can be outside.
Something that I struggle with outside time is, I don't know what you call this, but it's like, to me, it feels like outdoor anxiety, where it's like, especially when they were smaller, because now my youngest is 5, and anytime they're on a bike or a skateboard or roller skates or whatever, I'm constantly at the park. I think they're going to fall off a ladder. And then I'm thinking of like hiking, and like it can be dangerous. They
or
can
like stranger
fall.
danger. That
Oh
would
my
be
gosh.
my anxiety.
Oh yeah, like they want to go to the park, but the park I can't see it from my house. And so, do you have any advice for anybody that has that kind of like anxiety or fear of kind of the unknown of outside, or like getting hurt?
It's hard to answer that question because I am also that parent. I am the one that's like, behind my kids. And I think with each family, you have to differentiate between like risky play and dangerous play. So dangerous play is obviously no, this is a hard no, hard stop. You're not doing this. But then there's risky play, and there are so many good things with risky play, but you have to determine as a family what you're comfortable with. And those things are things that, they can get hurt. But also, you have to weigh the negatives with the positives, like they're learning. My daughter has just learned how to climb our tree. We've got ratchet straps around it with tree holds, and she has just learned how to climb the tree. So that sends my anxiety. She's 3, right? So I'm so proud of her. And I try not to use the words be careful. I say be careful, or I used to say be careful constantly. Constantly. I think a lot of parents, it's just like, oh, be careful of your body, be careful that you're not hurting the house, be careful that all these things, and be careful. Kids, it doesn't even register to them anymore. And also, if you're saying be careful, they're probably doing something that maybe is on the risky side, and now you've interrupted their concentration to tell them to be careful. So I try to use words like, look at how strong your body is, or you've got this, or be aware of your body, different ways that they can pay attention. But you can bet that when my 3-year-old is up climbing our tree, I am like underneath her. It's so hard not to intervene. But if you distinguish that like what they're doing is not dangerous and it is something that is going to teach them, self-management, or they're able to distinguish, where their boundaries, if they're able to distinguish their boundaries and figure out how high they can climb, and then maybe the next time they climb higher. And those are all important skills that kids need to learn. Adults need to learn them. Kids, everyone needs to learn those. And so it's just, you really have to like have a plan, try not to interject and say, be careful. But also be there to catch them if they're going to fall. Be there, be present, be available, but let them learn. That's super hard. And I'm not saying that I do it every time, because I don't. It's a learning curve. You're trying to let your kids be kids and learn and grow. I don't want to make any unscheduled ER trips either. So hard sometimes, but also I can see over time by letting them. I mean, my older kid, my 6-year-old, would never have climbed that tree when he was 3, because I wouldn't have let him. I wouldn't have even let him.
Yeah. I like hear so many values in this challenge, right? That you're teaching your kids and that you're creating these experiences for them. Like when you think about being a present parent, like we all want to be more present and available and less irritable and more patient and all of these things. And the outdoors creates that environment where like you don't have the distractions. Well, hopefully you're not staring at your phone out there if you're like going to catch them underneath a tree, or like going the camping and being like confined in this little space together, and you're outside. And we just went camping and just hearing the birds chirping and kind of waking up together at the same time to the sounds of wilderness. Like I never thought I would enjoy that, but there's just so many moments in nature, and just having your parents also walking the walk, like the fact that you're doing it with them to show them like, it's also important for me. It's important for kids to exercise, but are you mom and dad? It's important for us to chase our dreams. Are you mom and dad? You're out there with them, which is so cool. And I think just doing this challenge has got to be teaching them so much about themselves and family values and their health.
I hope so. I hope they come out of this. I always think like wherever they end up in the world or the country or the state or whatever, like they will have nature as like an anchor for them. No matter where they are, they can go out. And I hope that will be always with them as like a staple.
And they're going to be outside the norm, which is a beautiful thing, because the way our society is going with technology, for them to have this tool, this superpower really in their back pocket of, all right, if I am a little stressed, I can just go outside. I know how important this is. And then they can be those leaders of teaching and being the example for people around them. So you may be affecting just them right now, but knowing that it does really have a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I keep thinking too about like when I've been in a really low spot and when you've been in a really low spot, we were talking about this too, just like how when I had a miscarriage, like nothing helped me, like nothing. I didn't want flowers from people. I didn't want to talk on the phone. nobody could understand what I was going through. And like literally the only thing that gave me any sort of peace was just sitting outside and just like wind hitting my face, sun beaming on me. Nobody's talking to me. And I just think about that too with your kids. Like if they are in another country and they can't call you or whatever, like they do already know this healing nature of being outside. And so I just think it's something that it's free. It's always available. Like you said, you can dress to get out there. And you don't have to use it as an excuse. People that I coach, I'm always like, they're like, oh no, it's too cold outside. And I'm like, okay, you live in Texas. Like what are we talking here? And also like, what's your threshold? And I think that's a really good kind of, fine, -20. Mm-hmm. We're going to say it's out of the question, not for Laura and her family, but I think it's important for people to distinguish that because this will help your mental health and your physical health to get out there. And so is it 30 degrees? Is it 40 degrees? If it's raining, is it out? But like decide what it is because you can always be like, I don't know, it looks a little windy out. There's a cloud coming that looks like.
Well, and also what are you willing to do to feel better? If you have this resource that is free, use it. And yes, it might be a little chilly, but those excuses are always going to come up. For me, when I'm feeling so depressed and I don't want to get out of bed, it's that self-talk of, bitch, get your ass outside. It's going to make you feel better. Like, shut this person that's just yapping, negative Nancy. Sorry, any Nancy's listening. But your inner critic, that monkey mind is just going wild. And sometimes you just have to say, stop, and just don't think and just get outside, even just standing in your front yard. Mm-hmm. All right, Laura, let's tell the people who are interested. They're intrigued. They're maybe not committed yet, but they want to learn more. Where would you recommend they go?
So if you're interested in 1000hours.com or 1000 hours outside, you can go to 1000hoursoutside.com and that will bring you to all your trackers. They also have 100-hour trackers. So if you want to start smaller and you want to build yourself up, or you just want to see like, how long will it take me to get 100 hours? Or you just want to check it out. They have 100-hour trackers and they have 1000-hour trackers. Every year they get new trackers. They have a little shop there. So if you get 1000 hours, like the first year we did with my kids, we got a magnet that said 1000 hours outside. Congratulations. So that is where I would go if you are at all interested in it. To have that like hanging on your fridge. We have, 4-foot tall, huge tracker now in our kitchen as a huge reminder, like this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. And to watch it as it fills with colors is awesome. My kids get super excited, like, look how much is filled now. It's less white and more color. So that's where you could go, just to that website. And then if you're interested in outside, like my favorite book, if you're looking for a book, my most inspirational book is the one by Linda McGurk, There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather. That one was truly inspirational. She grew up in Sweden and then she moved to Indiana after she got married and had kids. So she spent time in both. In Sweden, they follow what's called friluftsliv, which is open air life, which is also the name of her second book, which I just read last week, which was amazing as well. But it's basically the intention of getting outside every single day, regardless of what the weather or what you have going on for the day. And so her take compares Swedish values, the Nordic values, to the United States. And the difference in how healthy and resilient the people are there compared to here. So that was super inspirational. And then her second book, I also loved. I just read it last weekend, The Open Air Life. It's again by Linda McGurk. And it was amazing. It was so inspirational. It follows more of the friluftsliv their guidelines. And it was my best resource. I mean, you can Google and you can look online. Facebook and Instagram, the 1000 Hours outside groups are very inspirational as well. Parents or single people, everybody's on there doing it and have given me great ideas, like gift ideas for my kids, things that they have picked up that makes it easier to hike or to do things with kids, and all kinds of ideas like that. But I really love Linda McGurk's books. That is, if you're looking for an outside book, that is where I would totally start.
I love that. I love what that is. And I love too thinking about like you having maybe different values than your neighbor next to you or friends or family members, and thinking about it sounds like, gift ideas for your kids. You're not going to want a bunch of toys inside your house or electronics. You'd probably prefer some camping gear, something like that. So can you kind of talk about, how you've created this set of values, and if people do have comments about it or opinions about it, kind of how you handle that?
If you were to ask my husband or I on any specific day, like what is the one value that we're trying to instill in our kids, it's going to be kindness. Hands down, both of us would say it. It's going to be kindness. You posted something a long time ago, and it totally hit home with me because we do the same thing. When we go to parent teacher conferences, I want to hear that my kid, how they're doing in reading. I want to know that their math, those are so important. Don't get me wrong. But more important is if they're a kind friend, if they're a good listener, if they're a good human being. And so that is our number one value that we're trying to instill in our kids. Every night before we go to bed, we all of us, we say our high point of the day, our low point of the day, and an act of kindness that we perform that day. Sometimes we can't think of an act of kindness. Sometimes I'm like, you know what, guys, I can't think of anything that I did that was like a true act of kindness. And never fails, every single night, someone will come up with an act of kindness for that person. So, Mom, you did this for me, and I think that was really kind of you. And that in itself is a kindness, right? That's an act of kindness, just reminding someone of something that they did that was nice or helpful. Also, we try to teach them kindness in nature, pack it in, pack it out, leave no trace, not littering, trying to clean up our campsite before we leave it. All those things. It's just that staple value of being kind. People think we're crazy. Oftentimes they're like, why would you want to do this? And like, why not do it? And if we don't make 1,000 hours, who cares? If we make 800 hours, I mean, a lot of the people on the social media groups are like, I only made this many hours. And again, people are like, you made that many hours. Congratulations. Every hour that you spend outside with your family or yourself or your kids or your neighbors or in your own mind is an hour of success. I mean, you have done yourself a favor. For every single hour, every 15-minute chunk of time you're outside, you have done yourself such a favor. And I tell those people, I don't care. I don't care if you think I'm crazy. We are doing our own thing. And we also, another thing that we teach is acceptance. We try to be very accepting of all types of people, and we try to teach our kids that. And so try to accept us as well.
I love that. Yeah, all of those values are so wonderful to think about. And I love the act of kindness, because we do the peek in the pit, but I love that. I've also thought about throwing in, I've heard people say that they have to talk about how they failed in the day to kind of normalize failure. Like, I tried and I failed at something, and then like having your support people there for you. And so I love these little prompts. I have this book on my dinner table, 365 connecting questions for families. And so if you need another prompt, every day has a different one. It's so amazing. But it's just that like connection again. And I love that acceptance. Like, you can show your kids, people may think we're weird, and that's okay.
At least we feel damn good.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we preach that all the time. It's like, as long as you're happy, I don't care. As long as you're happy and safe, at the end of the day, my kids know that they are supported. They know that they're loved. They know that we have their back no matter what. And that's the most important thing, guys. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, we're so grateful that you are doing this, so you can come on and tell our listeners about it and spread some kindness to them. I know everyone listening is probably going to think a little bit more about, how can I get outside? Maybe it's not 1,000 hours. Maybe it's 100. Maybe it is going all in. Who knows? But everyone listening, I just want to call you guys out that this is awesome, because it's going to spark something in you. I know it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And Laura, we always end our show with 3 gold stars. Your 3 takeaways for our listeners.
Be intentional. So set aside time every single day to go outside. It doesn't have to be a long time. It doesn't have to be doing something super extravagant or a huge adventure. Just set aside time every day. Be intentional with your time and just do it. The second one is keep it simple. Again, it doesn't have to be a huge hike. It doesn't have to be going all out, going crazy. It can be drinking your coffee outside in the morning. It can be bringing a book outside. It can be balancing your checkbook outside. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It doesn't even have to be exercise related. That would obviously be a huge bonus, but just get outside and keep it simple and keep it easy. Um, and the third one is, if you want to be successful, and this goes with anything in life, if you want to be successful, you have to set yourself up for success. So you have to do a little bit of planning. If you're going to go on an adventure, you have to plan, check the weather. Nobody wants to get downpoured on if they're not wearing appropriate clothes. Nobody wants to be freezing. Everybody wants to be comfortable and be successful. And no one wants to go back out if you end on a sour note. So keeping yourself comfortable, trying to plan, um, always pack snacks if you have kids. Always snacks, no matter what. No matter if you think it's 20 minutes at the park, it might turn into 2 hours and they're going to want snacks. And you don't, again, want to get to the point where everyone's like, I'm starving and cranky. And then you get home and then it's chaos. And then you're leaving it on, like, instead of feeling successful that you did a couple hours at the park, you're like, this is stressful and I'm not going to do this again. So always snacks, always water. First thing in the morning, we fill up water bottles. If we're going to school, they go in the backpack. If we're going to daycare, they go in the bag. If we're going outside, they go in and out outside. Always water, always snacks. But you set yourself up to be successful or it won't happen.
I love it. Such a good reminder. And also, if you don't have kids, snacks and water.
I was just in Japan visiting my best friend Britt, and we were like talking about how well behaved her kids were, and they're wonderful children, but she had so many snacks at every turn. They were just snacking the whole time we were out and about. And I'm like, this is the key. I am not a great snack packer when we go to the park or whenever. And I'm like, and they always ask, and I'm like, why? This is the key. The key is the snacks and the water, for sure. Love that advice.
All right. And we have Unleashing Ivy up next, our rapid fire questions. Laura, are you ready?
Go for it.
Okay. My question is, what is one of your favorite memories that you've created with your family outside?
Last summer, we spent a week. We bought a pop-up camper. And last summer, we did a week-long trip. We went to Hocking Hills, Ohio, which when we told people we were going to vacation, they were okay. It was relentless. It was so exhausting because there's no downtime, right? You are with your kids constantly. There's no nap time. When you go to bed, everyone goes to bed. When you get up, everyone wakes up. It was so fulfilling as a parent. The things that my kids got out of it was insane. It was amazing. Their memories that they'll have of that trip and the memories that I have, even the car ride. I mean, it was amazing. It was the hikes. It was beautiful weather. Everything was like the stars were aligned for us. And it prompted us that we're going to do another trip this summer. It was just the greatest 7 days, and also the most stressful, like eating all the things that go with camping. But in the back of my mind, I was like, worst case scenario, we find a hotel and order a pizza. But it didn't come down to that. It was just so much good.
I think about the bonding too. Like it's teamwork when you're outside and camping and all of that. Like when we go camping, it's like, who's cooking the food, and then when we're fishing, who's grabbing the bait, and like who's packing the cooler. And I feel like for them as siblings, it's really cool that they're creating those memories with you. Okay, my question is going to be outside of getting outside. Besides this, like you as a person and a mom and a working mom, what is like something that you're working on within your own self-growth?
That would be my anxiety. Definitely. I was not able to put a name on my anxiety for a long time. I could tell that different parts of me, I could tell that something, I get triggered by things, and I wasn't able to put a word specifically to it until a few years ago. And now I have been working hard to find my patience and find myself as a person, right? I mean, in the midst of trying to figure out my level of anxiety and how this is all going to fit. I've had 3 children. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm mom. I'm wife. I'm dental hygienist. I'm the outside crazy neighbor lady. So just finding who I am I'm 38 now, and I feel like about 35-ish, all of a sudden I'm like, I am who I am, and I don't really apologize for that. I have found kind of the growth and found who I am, and your 20s, you kind of figure that all out, or you try to figure that all out. And now I don't know, I'm comfortable in my skin, which is hard for me to say because I don't know that that's exactly all the way true. But I've kind of embraced where I'm at and who my peeps are, um, and how far I've come from, my teenage years and my 20s, and I feel comfortable. I don't know. That sounds really weird to say it out loud because I just don't feel that confident saying it. But I also am like, yeah, that's right. That's how I feel.
Well, it's important, I think, along the journey of recognizing your progress, right? Because we're never going to arrive to this perfectly unanxious person, maybe. Who knows? But like, I just feel like noticing the progress along the way and the things that have helped you and the circle that supports you and all of those things, like, it's so cool to, I think, I beat myself up sometimes as a mom that like I haven't figured these things out with my own anxiety or my own whatever. And it's like, it's good for them to see you struggle and talk about it and understand that we have these big emotions that things get triggered and then we can talk about it and do something about it. And so I love that. And I think celebrating that progress and noticing it so that you can continually grow is so important.
There's something to be said. I mean, if you mess up and you apologize, there's a learning lesson for your kids in that as well. You're teaching them that it's okay to mess up, it's okay to apologize, and everybody moves on. And we all make mistakes and we all learn from it and grow. And there's a huge learning lesson for kids.
Oh, that answer teased me up perfectly for our last question. If you could go back and tell younger Laura one thing, what would you tell her?
Tell her not to get so worked up about all the small things. Like, just let it go, girlfriend. Like, it's not as big of a deal as you think it's going to be.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for talking through this challenge. I think it's really different. It's really awesome what you're doing. I love when people challenge themselves to something so extreme. It's like, what are you doing and why? And tell us all about it. It's so awesome. So we just want to encourage you to keep doing it and sharing it, so we can continue to learn and, maybe challenge ourselves to some more outside time. But we appreciate your time. You're a mom. Are the kids in the backyard or what are they doing right now?
They're at soccer right now. It's like peace and quiet just for a little bit, but they're at soccer. Yep.
I love too that the birds were like perfectly chirping behind her at different
Yes. Yes. And I purposely didn't say anything in the beginning of Laura's outside. So if you are watching this, you can see it. If not, go back and watch the YouTube because it's only fitting that she would be outside.
Yes. All right. And Laura, we always end every episode with your piece of gold.
So my favorite quote, and it goes on my Christmas card every year, is from John Muir, who was a outdoorsman. And it's, of all the paths you take in life, make sure a few of them are dirt.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.